What's up, guys? It's Jerry here, coming at you. It's nighttime. Ooh, spooky. But what better circumstances under which to record a review? Now, it's gonna be the subject of remakes is a very tenuous one. Remakes, reboots, reimaginings, revitalization of old properties. This is a topic of much debate and even much outcry these days in terms of the modern cinematic landscape, and it seems clear that, like it or not, remakes for the time being are very much here to stay. They're basically a genre in and of themselves, and as such, remakes are very problematic, especially horror remakes, because we get so many of those. And that becomes problematic because, first and foremost, you have these two tiers, it seems like, at least for horror remakes. You have the big budget, sort of Hollywood studio remake, you know, your $20 to $60 million range remake, and then you have your low or micro budget independent remake. And sad as it is to say, there is a marked difference that seems to be pretty consistent between the two. I'm not at all the type who likes to judge movies based on budgets. However, more often than not, it seems like if you look at a low-budget independent remake, your chances of it being anything that's interesting or fresh increase exponentially when compared to, you know, the big studio, big money remakes. And you couldn't tell already, I'm talking about Poltergeist. That's the movie I saw this past weekend. And this is a studio remake of a classic. And I wish I could say this breaks the cycle, but unfortunately for me anyway, it doesn't. It sadly perpetuates the cycle, I feel like. And remakes are further troublesome because, you know, it doesn't seem like there's any agreeable criterion or set of criteria on which to assess a horror remake or to take one in. And for me, you know, what I usually look for is just something that at least tries, you know, try to bring some fresh ideas, try to justify your existence, because you never know who's gonna have a fresh idea, who's gonna have a new take on an idea, and that can be fun, to see a different artist take on a story we've seen before. It's just that with so much money on the line, studios aren't inclined to take that kind of a chance or to engage that way. And Poltergeist is kind of an example of this. This movie begins in the same territory the original Poltergeist does. You know, you have this family, they're down on their luck, the father has just been laid off, and they have to move into a new neighborhood, and the kids aren't psyched about it at all. And as they're getting settled in, they start to experience these strange phenomena. They start to experience a visitation by a mischievous and ultimately malevolent spirit, a poltergeist. And this movie, part of the trouble is this one does what so many of them do, which is it spends a lot of time foreshadowing and building up moments and going, remember Poltergeist? And that really starts to kill the suspense after a while, you know? It's like when they arrive at the house, immediately there's a massive shot where they zoom into the tree, and they're like, look, it's the tree! Look, it's the tree! Tree! Look, it's the, look, tree! Look, it's, look, the, look, tree! And I'm like, I know it's coming. Don't tell me. I feel like this movie could have really benefited from, you know, approaching it as if we all hadn't seen it and weren't intimately familiar with the details of the story, because this movie really leaves nothing to the imagination that way. Everything is telegraphed and everything goes, look, remember Poltergeist? And I'm like, yes, I do. Perhaps why don't you surprise me with something? And you have this family that's supposedly down on their luck, but you know, we join them moving into a pretty big house in a pretty nice neighborhood, despite the fact that they keep telling us it's shitty. This movie seems to brush over their situation in an effort to seem conversational, but like, you know, you can't show me one scene where Sam Rockwell's credit cards get declined and then expect that to cover the believability of that part of the story for a whole 90-minute experience. Tree. Yeah, the cast here, for the most part, is all pretty good. I mean, Rosemary DeWitt is really good, Jane Addams is really good, Jared Harris is good, Sam Rockwell's good. I mean, I liked his performance, although I feel like it's just suited to a different movie. He's got this kind of dry wit that doesn't exactly fit here. And then you have Jared Harris, who, like, is introduced on this paranormal investigation show or web series, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. And then when you meet him on camera, when he actually enters the movie, it's like, no, but he's a badass, though. Like, he's the real deal. And the way they orchestrate that doesn't ever click, or at least it didn't for me. I was like, who do you want this character to be? And then you have the kids, and like, the young daughter is adorable, you know, and she does a good job. She's believable. The young son, for the most part, does a good job. The teenage daughter, the performance is fine, but that character just ends up being sort of a nothing character because she's a different person every other scene she's in. This movie ultimately starts to come apart and feel like a market-tested, art-by-committee remake, where it's like, okay, what are the bullet points we gotta hit? Alright, let's hit those bullet points. And when it does finally introduce a couple new ideas, it's like they're not in tune with the spirit of the movie enough that they can overcome all the stuff that's come before them. So you end up with this largely suspenseless, by-the-numbers remake, and I'm sad to say that because I wanted this to be good. I wanted to like this. I thought the trailer was alright. You know, there's some really cool shots. There's some really cool images here and there, but it's not altogether hard to get a cool image in a movie nowadays. Tree. There were some neat little moments and stuff like that. This movie kind of has two modes. It's either winding up and then never actually delivering a punch, or it's punching you with no wind up. And for a horror movie, that kind of muddies any attempt at suspense there are. And you know, 3/4 of the way through this movie, I started to think to myself, you know, maybe this movie isn't made for me. Maybe who this movie's really made for is a kid about the age of the son in the movie, because certain elements are changed to where he's kind of taking the lead in some of the action, and that's fine. And from what I've heard since seeing it, you know, the director wanted to make this kid accessible, a family-friendly horror movie, and I'm down for the cause when it comes to that. I like that idea, but I don't think this movie handles it well, because, you know, certain scenes seem like they're too PG-13 and too adult for something of that intention, and ultimately I just can't really discern any one specific vision with this. The rest of the movie, it's either sort of a bullet point checklist of Poltergeist moments, or, you know, weird modern product placement. This movie doesn't justify its existence really beyond, look, now they have iPhones and a drone. So it ultimately just becomes kind of an uninspiring mess. And I wanted, like I said, I wanted to like this, I wanted to enjoy it. I like, you know, Sam Raimi's company produced this, but, you know, ultimately, it just doesn't come together, and it doesn't do anything to justify its existence. It doesn't do anything new or exciting. You know, this movie sort of hits every pitfall that a big studio horror movie remake hits, right down to the overuse of CGI, because all the major set pieces are CG, and you can tell. Like, it's not necessarily bad CG, but it's also not necessarily very good CG. It's just kind of alright CG, and when you have alright CG in a not otherwise very interesting movie, it calls direct attention to itself. You know, Carrie was the same way. I know people tend to harp on it a lot, but you really do wish for some kind of marriage of practical and CG effects. The most effective moment in this entire movie, the only scene that really harbors any suspense, involves drywall and a drill bit, you know? I feel like this whole movie is kind of summed up in the opening shot. It's like the opening shot is this really kind of gorgeous and eerie macro image of these flowing pixels, and as it zooms out to reveal the true image, you know, to reveal what we're really looking at, it's a video game on an iPad. And, you know, that's kind of what this whole movie is. It's like, oh, here's the interesting little thing, and oh, look, but it's modern, though. If you want to watch a good Poltergeist remake, just go watch Insidious, because, you know, that's a total love letter to Poltergeist, and it has some fresh ideas to add to that mix. So, as sad as I am to say it, as much as I wanted to like it, you know, it ultimately comes out as being kind of bland and uninspired, and I'm sorry that they didn't stick the landing. It's a bummer, because like I said, the performances are good, and there are some fun moments when it seems like actors were allowed to just play with each other. But yeah, Poltergeist is the movie. You know, let's talk about this. There are some movies that you could argue would be really great to remake. So what's something you would like to see remade, you know? And what's a remake you think is particularly good or underrated? You know, let's talk about that, because I don't think it's proper just to dismiss remakes for what they are. There are some really good ones out there, and there are some, like The Thing and The Fly, that are classics, you know? So yeah, until next time, I am Jerry. Poltergeist 2015 is the film. Cheers.